When Google shifts the rules, who at the agency has to answer for a 30% traffic drop? Explain what generative engine optimization even is. Sean Stahlman is the SVP of SEO at Razorfish, one of the giants in digital marketing. But his path to running search at scale started somewhere completely different, building a skateboarding brand in Southern California and trying to figure out how to sell decks online. This episode is about how SEO has evolved inside massive agencies like Razorfish, from a siloed, misunderstood specialty to a foundational piece of brand strategy. We talk about how Sean's team structures career paths, how they partner with paid media, and why search is increasingly being treated like a brand channel. But we also dig into the real questions clients are asking right now: how to prepare for AI-driven search experiences, how to defend brand presence in new search formats, and what to make of the sudden flood of SEO-focused AI tools. Sean is trying to lead a practice that's both scalable and deeply technical, while re-educating clients and colleagues in real time about what AI actually does and what it definitely doesn't. Joe and I have known Sean for over a decade. We worked together at Razorfish, and I've seen firsthand how he leads teams and handles the chaos of agency life. This was a chance to catch up and to really unpack how SEO has evolved at scale. Here's our colleague, our friend, Sean Stahlman. John, welcome to the Page 2 podcast. This is going to be an exciting one for Joe and I. For the audience who doesn't know, the three of us worked together at Razorfish for quite a few years back in 2011 to about 2015 for myself. Joe was there for a number of years longer, and it's been too long since we've had a chance to catch up. So this is exciting. And believe it or not, Joe and I do prepare for these. So we do some research on our guests, and it's fun to dig into you in a way that I haven't done in the past. And I thought one thing that was maybe fun to talk about, especially with your background in the skateboards, was how you originally got into SEO, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, but running a skateboard shop, or was it a website?
No, it was actually a skateboard company. So art school, and then started like interning as a multimedia specialist, like whatever that meant, like programming underwear and Macromedia, Shockwave, which became Flash, but then got bought by Adobe. And at the same time, I was like just fanatically skateboarding, got like skateboard like all over the office, and started the company with a bunch of friends and ran that for a while and grew that pretty big, and then actually built a website around it and started a distribution company, and then welcome to Friends with Business. So we sold off the pieces of it. It's still alive and well in Southern California, which is amazing. But at the same time, I got super interested in like, how do I actually sell this product that like we're putting like our heart and life into? And then that kind of just paved the way until, if I can figure it out here, how can I start to figure it out for other brands? And that just led the trajectory to getting involved in search marketing.
This is incredible to me. I didn't know any of this. So how long were you running that company?
5 or 6 years.
Wow. Okay. So fast forward, you've been at Razorfish combined for about 17 years, which is also
Thanks
incredible.
For doing the math, because I did do the math, and that was like,
Yeah.
so old.
I went to your LinkedIn and I was like, all right, I need to add up this chunk. There was a stop at Outspoken Media with Ray, who's another sort of OG in the industry, and that's incredible. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, so at Outspoken Media, you took on a little bit of a different role, right? Like not just SEO specifically, and then you came back to SEO when you came back to Razorfish. Can you talk a little bit about what the driver was to take on something like that, knowing that you'd been in SEO for so long? It was maybe a risk, not necessarily going to a new agency, but maybe taking on something that was a little bit out of, I don't know, what you've been doing for so long.
Yeah, I think we all feel that in our careers. You just hit the point you're like, I just keep doing like the same thing over and over again. And the team was amazing, but had been going through a lot of transitions, like just being part of a big agency owned by a larger holding company, and looking at the products that were coming in, and you're putting out like amazing deliverables, and like we can continue to drive growth, but you only have so much ability to actually like impact what gets done. And talking to Rhea, she was just like, look, like I had this opportunity here. We're right in your backyard. She's literally like 7 miles like down the road from me. And we had like never really talked, but we operate in the same circles. And so we just started having a conversation around what would this eventually look like. And then she just had this opportunity. Like, I need someone to come in and run client services. And I jumped at the opportunity full while telling her like, I have no business like being in client services, but they're like, you're amazing at it. I'm like, you love talking to clients, like people let you get things done. And I was like, sure, why not? We'll figure this out and work towards it. So it was a really interesting experience having that SEO background, but then talking to executives, talking to CMOs, and having that direct contact with people looking for services and looking to advance their growth without having to go through like 17 different layers of like the RFP comes in and here's how we respond and this is what we're going to come with and then here's the pricing and then you don't know why you win or why you lose along the way. At least it's at that stage of my career, I didn't know. So I had the very immediate opportunity to go, this is how we're going to respond, working with Rhea, working with her amazing team and what it was that they want to bring to the table. And if you've spoken to her, she's an absolute badass. She doesn't mess around. She's very particular about what she wants to bring and what clients she wants to take on. And that was something new. I was like, wait, because we're going to pick and choose who we want to work with. I was like, this is great. You can't pick a better opportunity than that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so I imagine now as the SVP of SEO at Razorfish, you're probably doing a lot more of that sort of client service. You're maybe less in the weeds in the actual doing and much more of the business development, RFPs, client management component. So I imagine some of those skills are now much more transferable to what you're doing today, correct?
Yeah, absolute trial by fire, figuring that out, like working through that and stumbling and learning and figuring out like, how do I keep advancing that? But then when there was the opportunity to come back to Razorfish and we've been talking the entire time that I was gone, like always talking, always being friends. I remember you hitting up being like, I'm like working on this audit, like I need some help. I'm like, no problem, knock this out, keep it going. We're all good homies.
You're basically my bat signal.
Yeah, which I like being. It's a fun part of the role. So coming back, like I had that behind the curtains of, like these are the questions to ask. These are the people to try to get to. And then how do you kind of eliminate that clutter to just really hone in on this is the opportunity of what we can bring to the table. This is the growth that we can drive. And here's like the math and science of how we're actually going to make that happen. So that was a lot of the stuff that I really learned from her in my time at Outspoken Media and working with the entire team there.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I started at Razorfish, it was my first official SEO role. And so I learned a ton from you. And I know my years there and even talking to people since I've left, always positive things about how you manage and how you get feedback. And I think you have a unique perspective compared to some of the other guests just around working at an agency the size of Razorfish. So I want to dig into the team management component of it, because I think it's a sort of a unique point of view. To start, like, how do you work across a team that's the size of Razorfish, right? Do you have one-on-ones with each person? How do you wrangle like a team of that size and keep moving things forward?
A lot of honesty, a lot of openness, a lot of transparency. This is how things work and this is what we're responsible for. I'm also like, I'm still in the weeds. Like you'll pry the work from my cold dead hands. I think that's what kind of keeps me also like in tune, is I'm not just like talking about this is what we need to do and maybe let's check these 3 boxes and let's put the proposal, or this is what we have to do to go through the motions. I love the work and I'm passionate about the work. I get a little bit obsessive about it sometimes. But that said, I think that's what helps me thrive, is like I have that connective tissue to like the entire team. I got a Teams chat behind me that's got 40 core SEO team members on it, a separate group for like just the core leads, and then a separate one with my colleague Ryan Jones, who I cover on the practice with, and then one with us and like our boss and like different teams. And so just it doesn't work for everybody, but works for me. But always like being there and being like tuned in and plugged in, so that people don't feel like, oh, I just need to get like a piece of someone's time to get a perspective on something. Always being there like every step of the way, I think has been really helpful. And I think that helps build transparency and the ability to go, I'm having a problem with this, or I don't know how to overcome this situation or this client, and being not problematic because they have challenges, but what's the unique perspective on how do we solve their problem? Like, how can we think about doing this? Who can I reach out to? And that's something that I've learned from my manager and editor, Rob Silva, along the way, is a key part of it is just knowing who to reach out to and who to plug into and who to go to for advice to keep things moving ahead.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you and Ryan structure the SEO team? I'm curious what there used to be when John and I were there, but is there still like a growth path? People can come in from an intern and work their way all the way up. What are those titles now? How do you structure everybody?
Yeah, I think our titling structure now is coordinator, strategist, supervisor, associate director, and then you're in the VP level. So I think it's GVP, SVP, EVP. So we always maintain a level above us to like ultimately grow in, but search just changes so dramatically across the board. John knows this. It's also like SEO has sat within every possible division within Razorfish over the 17 years that I've been here on and off. We sat within web dev, we sat within tech, we've sat with media, sat within like data sciences for a while. We've always been like that weird like anomaly of like, where does this team fit? And we've ultimately found our home within media, and just like the cross pollination that we have, paid media with display, with all the different components of social, and now getting into how do we interact with CRM and how do we help amplify their database and kind of play that off. So it's been very cool to see over the years that we went from this outlier of they can just drive traffic to, oh no, like they are the conduit and catalyst to amplifying all these other media channels.
And it makes sense, right? Like SEO is one of those few, practices that really does touch almost everything across the spectrum of services, but media seems like there's a much stronger alignment when you're looking for integration, right? And finding efficiencies and things like that. They moved into media, I think, shortly before I arrived. So that was sort of the world that I lived in, my time there. From a titling perspective, are you guys thinking about modifying anything to include, references to AI or one of these 1,000 acronyms that folks are throwing around as like the new SEO? Are you guys thinking about adding some sort of like job description bullet that is AI related or
like
knowledge about ChatGPT or something like that?
It's like you're reading my emails. We're actually, myself, we're in the midst of rewriting the entire career framework for Razorfish. So hold on one second.
Yep.
I love it.
Do you remember this? I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, I wrote that.
I found
I
this.
wrote that.
I found this like cleaning up my office, and there's like there you are. Right there, John Clark.
Oh my God, with glasses. That's incredible.
I was like,
40
this task
pounds
where, like,
heavier.
okay, we have to completely overhaul like the job descriptions. They're archaic. What do people need from like a coding perspective, from computer sciences, like degree perspective, like all these things that we're thinking about as search continues to evolve. And as we move on beyond just SEO into, is it search everywhere optimization? Is it generative mention optimization? Whatever flavor of the day you want to pick. So yes, we are thinking about those things. And that's like the tasks that we're working through over the next couple of weeks of like, how do we redefine this? And also how does that elevate people's career path within an agency? And not just within an agency, but like, how do we help enable people, train people, coach people so that if they want to stay here, they have a very clear career path, or how can we help empower them to move on to that next stage? And I think that's one of the main things that I've learned from both of you guys and also from just other mentors here is we want to help people get to where they need to be, whether that's here or whether that's somewhere else. And I think that's why we generally have such an amazing tight-knit community of search practitioners that we still talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a great alumni group, sure. Who's taking the lead on clients already have questions? How do we optimize for AI? Is it the SEO team that takes the lead trying to answer that? Or is it UX development? Is it you guys?
Nope. It's entirely search because we're the ones who are going to have to answer for the consistent declines in month-over-month traffic. And also, where do we need to be thinking about where they're going to be investing their spend in the next back half of the year, the next quarter, or even planning for 2026. And so we're really thinking about like, how do we want to structure that? Because within like big agencies, you're thinking about like those renewals like so far out. And that's maybe the downside of like big agency search marketing is there's a lot of layers, a lot of approvals that you need to get through. So how do we start to set the stage of this is where your industry is going. These are the trends. These are the areas that we need to invest in. This is what you need from an agency support perspective, but also this is what you're going to need from your internal teams to actually make things happen because the agency can only do so much unless you want to give us the keys to the kingdom and let us author your content and implement like your tech changes, which we're more than happy to do. But a lot of times like there are dedicated client teams to do that. And so you need to make sure that they're empowered. They've got resources, they plan for this, and then you roll in this monstrosity that is AI, and then the legal teams get involved, and they take forever because everybody wants to do AI optimization until it's time to do AI optimization and use AI.
Yeah.
Are you guys hearing the same thing? Because that's kind of like what I feel day in and day out.
We work with a scale of client that's a little bit smaller than yours, and they're probably a little bit quicker too. So we've been able to do some interesting things already, but it takes a lot of coaching to get there.
I think one of the biggest challenges is just the lack of understanding about what AI actually is. And so I think there's like something that Razorfish always did very well, which was there's this education layer of what it is, right? And the smart ways to use it versus the noise that's happening over here about how people are using it. And then there's the smart application of it, which is a whole other sort of track. And then the measurement of it, right? Because just because it's the new shiny thing doesn't mean it's always going to work. And I'm curious, so was there a fight internally, or not a fight, but was there a debate internally around who would own those conversations? Because it's such the shiny, like sexy thing. I can imagine a lot of teams would be interested in owning those conversations.
No, I don't think so. I think there's AI and innovation just within the agency as a whole. So what are the tools that we're using? Like really what's happening on the creative side of the house? And how are they using that for almost like real-time asset management? How are you swapping out assets based upon where someone's coming in from? So that's one aspect. Like our perspective from search was like, we just have a unique perspective on this. And like, we have a unique voice and we need to start having these conversations. And I think it's one of the amazing things about Razorfish. It's like, we get the autonomy to go to clients and go, look, like this is where we think search is happening. And this is what's happening with your business. And this is how we think you need to start preparing. And we've even been doing that just above and beyond like our core SEO clients. So over the past few months, I've just been reaching out to other client engagement leads. And I'm like, do you like ones that aren't doing SEO whatsoever? And I'm like, would you like a perspective on where the industry is going and how your clients are showing up in just the overall AI landscape? No recommendations. Let's just use this as a discussion jumping off point. And I think that's been pretty amazing in the conversations that have started to spark. Because it's just, look, like, let's just level set. Here's where we're at. Here are the growth trends and how fast AI usage is growing. Google's still the absolute dominant player. It's going to be there forever. But how do you start to prepare for like this new environment? And like, before you even start to prepare, which is what everybody wants to do, let's just sit back and learn, like, where are we at? What's happening within the landscape? Is it going to impact your business like at all? But also like help educate clients and help them talk to others around. These are the things that we need to know. This is how we prepare for. And I think that's helped calm a lot of folks down so that they're not freaking out around, I'm so far behind. I need a new platform. Oh my God, these platforms cost $20,000 a month and I don't even know what I'm going to get out of it. I don't know the data sources and there's a new one popping up everywhere. Can I just use this cheaper one over here? So hold up, like, let's just understand where we're at. And then what does that mean for us? And then where do we want to invest in where do they want to invest in from their company perspective? And then how can, the agency or their teams help drive that forward? And it's pretty hilarious to see how people were talking about generative engine optimization or whatever 9 months ago to 6 months ago to kind of like where we're at right now. It's almost like years ago where you had all the different search engines out there and now you've got like one, and now we've got all these different AI models. What's going to happen in 6 months? Are we going to spend all this time trying to like modify content and put it out there and try to game an entity that's going to drive no more incremental traffic than what we have today?
Yeah, I would guess for the size of your clients, there's no short-term wins. You're not looking for the little hacks to get you to the top of results next week. You got to think about representing that brand and being a good steward of that brand's history. You can't make quick decisions like some tiny little startup could.
But what's interesting is that this whole like AI revolution has really opened their eyes for them to go, we are not the dominant player. Like other sites can own your brand name, especially within AI results. So that's now given us a bigger voice to go, we want some of your brand budget. We need to help manage, like, how are you approaching search from a brand and non-brand perspective? Also, who are those like indirect competitors that you didn't care about in the past who are now showing up because they're talking about your content in ways that you can't talk about that? We see that a lot within the fintech space, right? A financial services client can't talk about their cards, their rates, their offerings in the same way that an affiliate can, like a NerdWallet or a Points guy. So they're like, now they're beating us. So what do we do? Do we join? Do we partner up with them? Do we give them more money because now they own such a different perspective, like of our brand results? Do we form a content partnership? So those entire discussions are changing, and it's all being fueled from these SEO teams that are the ones who are looking at your traffic and or looking at your emerging competitors or looking at who's going to actually start to dominate in a space that we've been optimizing for and owning and now like significantly defending. So how do we continue to branch out? So it's no longer just like SEO on its own. Like we really need help of other channels out there to make this work.
I know Mike King has been very vocal about SEO being a brand channel. I'm curious the conversations that you guys are having around brand. Is it we need budget for SEM, right, to make sure we're always on for brand terms? Or is it, no, we need budget for SEO so that we can help, I don't know, create content to defend or develop strategies to be more visible in LLMs, et cetera? Like, how are you guys thinking about that request for budget?
From a branding perspective, it definitely comes down to partnerships with paid and organic teams. And so what's the full portfolio of brand, non-brand terms that we're optimizing for? What are we bidding on? But then using technologies like the OneSearch, which was developed within Publicis. Athena is another one that we use with certain brands that you can go, if I'm bidding on brand and I'm already showing up number one in brand, turn that off and move that money somewhere else. And so we've used that to actually build the case for using this technology to fund additional content production or fund more competitive search campaigns. So that's one aspect. And the other one is really partnerships with PR teams on the client side of what are you doing from just a brand perspective? Are you doing sponsorships? Are you doing collaborations? Are you doing community involvement? where are you talking about yourself? And so it's very interesting to see what's happened over the course of a couple of years. So one example was there was a brand that said, or we were recommending you should really customize your individual agent sites for whatever, give them the voice, give them the ability to talk about like, how do they show up and the services that they offer? But the structure was kind of like locked down. And so what happened was people now talk about that brand in a different channel, maybe in an unsavory fashion. So they have less ability to control the narrative, because if you're not owning it across your owned assets, then it bleeds off to the LinkedIns, the Reddit, the Glassdoors, the other entities where you can't control what's happening. So we're starting to bring that conversation to the front also. What is your brand play? And then how can SEO jump in and help optimize that, amplify it, and really help connect them all together?
So maybe that's a good segue to, you guys recently won the Gold Ava Digital Award for New York Life. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was an integrated strategy between media and SEO. Can you talk a little bit about, or maybe build on what you just said as it applies to that specific case?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, is that we just noticed that we were bidding on terms where we were showing up number one for, and we're like, this just doesn't make sense. Like we actually proved out that we're not getting any more like incremental traffic if we can turn one off. So can SEO pick it up? And it's amazing to have a client that's willing to put that trust into you. Let's go for it, test it out and show me, does it work? Does it not work? And if you can prove that it's right, then yeah, let's put something into place. So it's exactly what we do. And we use Athena for that. And so if we're bidding, we're number one, pull that paid campaign out of market, let like search pick it up, and constantly check along the way, is traffic good? Are leads good? And if everything's good, then like we know it's working. If it's not, then we need to go back to the drawing board and like figure that out again. Is that all going to change when we start to see more AI overviews show up for some of these branded terms? Sometimes you're a bit protected if you fall into the your money, your life category, because they're not appearing, but that window is closing ongoing. So that's part of our go-to-market strategy that we actually use. It's a holistic search mindset, like paid, organic, they have to work together. And I'm sure so many people see that if you don't have paid, organic connected together, like it's just a massive inefficiency across the board. And I still can't believe there's teams out there who won't collaborate, won't partner, and won't share data when the client is funding both channels.
Yeah, it was one thing that I really appreciated about my time at Razorfish was their emphasis on the merging of those two things together and the sharing of data. So I remember when I first started freelancing full time, like that was one of my pitches: fuse the data together, right? And make smarter decisions with more data rather than only looking at these channels in a silo. Yeah. So that was definitely something I think Razorfish has been excellent at for many years. Another, I guess, big initiative that you guys recently put some press around was mortgage.com. And I remember working with Lou Cohen on the city business back when I was at Razorfish, and they have so many incredible domain names. And we were always trying to think through, man, how can we use this? But it was such a big initiative, right? To get the budget assigned and then develop the content and assign the technical teams. If I read correctly, it was a 4-year process. Is that right? From like ideation to actually launch?
Probably went further back than that. I remember me and you talking about this being like, we got like their domain list and we're like, why don't y'all go do something with this domain? And
yeah, it was incredible.
Like you can revolutionize your home lending business. And I think we talked about this on the subway. That's a lot of city for a bunch of like QBR meetings. Like, how can we get to like do some of this stuff? And so that, the conversation came up probably around 4.5 years ago. Again, it's okay, like we've got this domain. Is there any value in it? It was just like redirecting back to their mortgage learning center, non-branded content hub. It's such a unique opportunity. If nothing else, it gives you another property to put into the results. So you get double bang for your buck for all these different mortgage terms. And so just did a variety of different, again, just honest conversations. You have this domain, here's what you can do with it. A lot of forecasting exercises, enter a global pandemic, things just got shut down, money gets diverted around. And we finally just have the opportunity to meet up with the right partners within Citi who are like, we actually see some value in making this happen. Again, able to talk about the home lending space in a non-brand perspective with like brand oversight, which was also pretty unique to do. And we see that happening within the fintech service space also. So you have the bank rates like buying up sites and you've got credit cards owned by them. So very similar mindset. So put them into the space, but talk about home lending, the challenges, how do you get around it in a way that the core client wasn't coming to market with. And so, the entire experience was built all within Razorfish, from ideation, creative, UX. It kind of goes back to the days of when SEO was built within all those consult on build projects where we were like, SEO requirements, non-negotiable. We don't deviate from it. And then working closely with content strategy, copy, analytics, and hopefully roll that out to like conversion rate optimization down the road. But it's been super fun to see. And it's been so long since I've had the opportunity to work on something where we can actually launch something like net new, put something net new into market, as opposed to a redesign or a migration or a consolidation.
So I plucked out something that you were quoted as saying, and I'm going to get the exact quote wrong, but it's something to the effect of, we tried to identify topics that didn't have a ton of coverage. I think you said something to the effect of, if NerdWallet, Bankrate, and all these other like big affiliates are already ranking for that term, do we even need more content? And so I was hoping you could dig into that process a little bit. Like, how did you, because traditional keyword research, like usually you're trying to go for volume, especially when you have a domain like mortgage.com, like you have a leg up and can probably rank for pretty competitive terms if you wanted to. And you have the strength of city that you could point links into mortgage.com to help facilitate that. So when you approach that keyword research process, like how did you like niche down into those keywords that maybe didn't have as much coverage? Does that question make sense? Like how, how did it differ from like a normal maybe keyword research exercise?
Stakeholder interviews, prospect interviews, really understanding what's happening within the home lending space and what was the white space that wasn't being addressed by brands and then the non-brand dominators like a NerdWallet example or like a Rocket. Who wasn't playing in that space and was there an opportunity? And when you start to sum up like the volume of searches and the interest around those, and then also being able to launch content within a very short time frame to address like consumer questions and consumer needs within a wild housing market and rates skyrocketing, it just there was a unique opportunity, and like that's what gives us like a unique perspective on the business as opposed to just going after the same terms everyone else is going after and then playing in a sea of sameness.
Makes sense. I'm curious, I don't know if you can say, but are you guys thinking about launching any other domains across their awesome list of?
If I was given the opportunity, I would absolutely love to. We didn't make this one of the success first.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got some wonderful domains though.
They do. Maybe this will help segue into the topic that everyone is talking about, which is AI. But I'm curious, did you guys use any sort of AI application to, I don't know, content creation or maybe even assist with the keyword research along that way? Or
I feel like everyone's using it to some degree. We built a model for another client where we were really tasked with incorporating AI into the agency-enabled content production model. And so I think it started 2 years ago. So again, you had your Bankrate, your creditcards.com, you had certain sites out there that were just like using AI to build content, and they had little disclaimers. This content was created with the assistance of AI, and we were like, that's pretty wild. Would you make a financial decision with content developed by AI? And then you start to see all the stuff that backfired with, no, this acronym doesn't mean that, and no, the formula behind how you calculate mortgage rate was completely wrong. And so we were like, okay, like we can't have that happen. I think our rules were, do not put the brand in any harm's way. And if you do, they'll be held to pay. So don't do that. So we built out this model where it was like AI assists for full AI automation and every step along the way. And then where does AI jump in and where does the human jump in? And how do we have like a series of checks and balances? We went super deep on this. We recorded every prompt that we put in, every prompt that we came out. We scored every single prompt, and we came up with this hybrid approach of we can use AI from a research perspective, from a outlining perspective, slight review perspective, definitely not full blown let the robots do everything out there, but got to a point where it was pretty successful and able to get that through a series of like legal reviews, but being like, nope, look, this is really good. Like this checks like all the boxes, brand tone, brand voice, content accuracy. It's really good. And so taking that mindset and being like, okay, let's use a similar approach and like how we build out content. So content is all completely like human generated, but everyone's using AI to assist in the research component, the fact checking component, and then actually finding gaps in content that we want to create versus what content is actually out there in market. So from a competitive analysis perspective, absolutely amazing. And then building out tools like internally here, and then trying to swim through all the other tools that are popping out there that are like using AI and being like, no, this is how you should build content. No, this is how you should build content. But still coming back to, we need to build content that addresses a consumer need that's not being talked about. And then how does the client have a unique solution to answer that question?
Is there a platform that you guys are finding more success with, like Perplexity, ChatGPT? Are you training your own models around brand guidelines and requirements? How are you How are you testing across that crowded landscape to find one that really works well?
I think everyone's still there. I don't think we've found one yet. I was just looking before I jumped on this call, like a document that was shared out around these are the recommended approaches for winning within different AI engines. And it's hilarious. Then like my colleague Ryan Josephson was like, why are people talking about this stuff? He's like, it's in the patents. Like just nobody goes and reads the patents. If you go and read the patent, then you would know how to like build out your content to win across the board. I guess the question is like, where do you need to win? And is it a one solution to win all? You go for the lowest common denominator? I'm not sure why, but no, I think we're still in that testing phase of what works well for the right client and within the right vertical. And that's like also the bigger challenge because there's more time and research that to be spent in doing that, whether you're in fintech or you're in pharma, or you're in healthcare or you're in CPG.
Yeah, it definitely helps if the brand I know at Razorfish, there are probably better documentation around this just because of the size of the clients. But one thing that we've been trying to do is if we don't have a really good brand document, we try to start recording like all the feedback and basically building our own. And that becomes part of the instructions for the custom GPT or whatever as it's creating that content. Always use the trademark symbol or whatever it is. That we found is like a core component of just table stakes. Like you have to have this before you even start trying to generate anything. Otherwise, the legal feedback and the process to get it approved becomes much more cumbersome.
And that's one of the luxuries that we have as a closed looped AI environment that doesn't feedback out. So you can put in brand guidelines, you can put in all this information. It won't go train anything else. And then it's like training your dragon, building building your AI entity and continuing to refine that until you get to that sweet spot. But what we've learned also is that you could have just created that content from scratch to save yourself all that time that you used to building an AI model and had a very similar output at the end.
Can
I don't know.
talk a
At
little
what
bit
point are we
about
going to
how the role of the
we're
content
just flooding the
creator-
internet with just AI content that just learns from that. It's like we're going to be living in the movie Idiocracy at some point too.
You didn't mention like an SEO content writer as one of the titles that you give people through the hierarchy, but I assume it's the SEO team that is starting, drafting, outlining. There's a big role for creating content within the SEO team. How has the role of your content people changed in the last like 12, 18 months?
It's definitely gone from kind of like table-based content optimization to really long form, like in-depth content expertise. And so we have an amazing team of writers. It's almost let's take a writer and teach them SEO as opposed to taking SEO and teach them how to write, because you have to be able to write so specifically for an individual brand and how that brand talks about the products. And then how do we weave in the optimization? And then how can that content also be used across other channels? How can it be used for paid landing pages? How can it be used for paid social campaigns? How can it be used in like media activation, offline assets? And so we're actually really like the kind of the source for how that content gets shared out. So it's definitely expanded well above and beyond when they would let me write SEO copy, which nobody should ever give me the ability to do.
If you were going to give advice to someone just out of college wanting to get started in SEO, what kind of advice would you give them today to launch a career like yours for the next 17 years? I know you can't do that. But
my God.
What advice would you give a 20-year-old?
Tripped and stumbled into this industry. I don't know if I'm going to answer on that one. I've just found that people who have a passion are a lot more successful than people who just have skills and expertise. If you're passionate about an industry or you're passionate about craft, I think you can take that really far. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense.
I think it does. If you don't have passion for this industry, you probably won't find this exciting as a career. It's such it has always been a very dynamic industry. In the last couple of years with AI, it's even more so. If you're not invested in learning and staying on top of all these changes, I think it's a tough industry to be in, honestly. So if you don't really have that passion, you're not going to have the drive to stay on top of all these changes. I think the answer makes sense, honestly.
Yeah. Passion, creativity, curiosity is a big one. Why does this work? Why is this happening when results are changing day over day? And then being able to like turn that into an action plan of great. Okay. Like this is a new world that we live in. Like now stop just reporting on what's happening and come up with solutions on like how do we start to mitigate this? How do we solve this? How do we pull in other channels to kind of offset these declines? Like that sort of creativity, that sort of passion, that sort of curiosity, I think is what really helps make a great search marketer. And it was so weird because, at one point it was like you came from a computer science background or you came from a marketing background, or you came from just a general like search background. And now it's like people come into this from other angles, people who have PhDs in a completely unrelated field, people who have had no college experience, people who came from a writing background. Like it's wild. Like Our team has just like some of the most diverse individuals, championship, nationally ranked water ski champion, pinball champion, like you name it. Like people just come from all walks. And I think that's what it takes to make like an amazing individual. But you said it's gotta be creativity and passion and just a lust for learning more.
I think about the next 12 to 18 months as like the period of great experimentation. We haven't had one of these in SEO in more than 10 years. For the most part, there's been a very tried and true approach we could take and find some successes, but it feels like the next year and a half are just going to be like really fun to experiment with.
It is. I think it's in a super exciting time for search. Like you said, like it's just been the status quo for so long, and now it's just changing super, super fast. So you're either like dreading it and you're like, this is terrifying, or you're like, no, this is awesome. This is like back in the day, like we can continue to like test and figure things out. I think it's made people more excited about search. I think it's given search a much broader aperture into like, how can this be used as a lens to drive visibility in my business? Because it's the first thing that people go is, oh, what's happening to my traffic? How do I get it back? We can help you solve that.
I think the most amazing thing is clients are leaning in. We would get requests for proposals and things like that. And it was just like, yeah, we need SEO. Now it's, hey, we need SEO. Can we get that proposal tomorrow? It's like the whole energy around the industry is just wildly different.
Yeah. It's gone from I need a service to we've been seeing a significant decline in performance and we need a partner to help figure out like, how do we move forward and chart the next X couple years and what is that going to, which is, I think it's a super fun industry to be in, to be like, oh, okay, like I get to help solve like how your business is going to like win. Yeah, sign me up.
So before we started recording, we were talking about RFPs and things like that. I am curious, like the RFP requests that are coming in, are they more centered around AI, or I guess how are those RFP questions changing? Because for RFPs, a lot of the questions are the same. Who are your clients? What vertical? Tell us about your technical SEO process. How do you do key? Are those questions now changing a little bit with everything that's happening in the industry, or is it still a lot of the same types of, I don't know, baseline questions?
I'm gonna say from the ones that I've seen, it's a little slow on how they're being weaved in, and I don't know if that's because procurement gets involved and they have to, vet all the questions that are being asked, because then it opens up a can of worms. So it's a general one is, what is your approach to generative engine optimizing, right? And it's okay. Ask me again, like in 2 weeks, and this is all going to completely change. What are the tools that you're using? What is your philosophy on this? But outside of that, no one's really getting too detailed until detail out your process of how you're doing this. Those tend to be a lot of the conversations that happen after the initial conversation that happened in a room where it's not documented, where you're like, okay, let's have a real conversation around how AI actually works and how it's impacting your traffic and how you need to be thinking about this so that you don't get involved with someone who's going to deliver on false promises because they don't know what they're talking.
Yeah. I watched the Conductor webinar with you and Ryan Jones when it first came out. I actually went back and rewatched it in prep for this conversation, and you guys talked about a matrix and you shared a slide that was the guiding principles of AI. And I'm guessing you probably use that internally, but also as a client framework. If you guys are thinking about using AI, here's some structure around how to think about it. That would seem like a great deliverable or answer to that generative AI question. But I'm also curious. So you guys recorded that, I think about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago.
So has that evolved at all in terms of those guidelines? Are they still the same, or because everything that has happened since then is like light years, right? So has that framework evolved at all?
Yeah, and I think it's going to continue to evolve. I don't think it's ever going to sit still. And if anything, it's just morphed into, here's our philosophy on this. But okay, if you're in this industry, here's how you need to think about it. And then also, what are your goals? Do you just have an awareness goal, or do you actually have like conversion and lead gen goal? And then from there, we'll modify it and customize it, and then present that as, here's a potential framework of like where we start to pull in AI, and here's how we're thinking about using AI. And now the next thing is what everyone's talking about is the actual measurement of those recommendations and those outputs. And then how are we quantifying, is it actually having an impact, as opposed to just checking that box and being like, no, yeah, we're thinking about it and we're doing the AI thing.
But do want to touch on measurement real fast. I think all the interviews we've had so far, there's only been 3 or 4 so far, but every one of them has hit on the need for either a new view into traffic, right? So maybe it's paid and then all other traffic, or thinking about different KPIs, like rankings are not as important anymore because you could still rank number one and see even less traffic. So how are you guys thinking about or preparing clients for maybe that evolution in how things are being measured?
I'll send it to you after this. I've basically kind of put together like a conversation starter deck around here is everything. But actually, like in reality, when I did an analysis of 50 different clients, like across our organization from a bunch of different verticals, it's less than 1% of all traffic is coming from like AI engines, and it's 99% coming from ChatGTP. So let's think about this and let's prepare for it, but also let's not completely freak out. Let's worry more about like, why is your traffic declining in Google, and who are those new indirect competitors that are taking away your visibility, and how do we start to have those conversations first? And I'm of for a mindset of, if you start to chip away at that issue and start to help solve that, you're going to be rewarded with everything else, because what do they consume? They consume content. So if you're putting out content and we're diversifying how we're doing that, and not just being focused on, I need to optimize my site and my one site to rule them all, it's not the case anymore. It's like going back to like almost like the old ways of SEO. So not press release optimization, but like how are we actually getting our content out there with content partnerships, and how are we talking about, how are we being cited, and how can all that stuff kind of work together? Like in the simplest method, like that's how I think it's going to come together and win, at least in the short term, and at least in the things that we can also control.
Yeah. You mentioned press release optimization. I still use the framework of coming up with a couple of different bylines and rotating them with different anchor texts and stuff like that we established at some point when I was at Razorfish, or maybe it was already there when I started. I don't remember, but it's such an easy application for PR.
It is, but with that example I talked about earlier, like that's where those mentions are being pulled from. Like they're being pulled from these other entities. And so it's like, why not lean into that conversation of why not influence it, as opposed to like letting somebody else run it?
Yeah, exactly. So two last questions. What do you wish people would ask you about SEO that they never do?
Oh man, is it a satisfying career path? I joke about that, but it's hard. Like you guys get it. Like you put so much time into like research and ideation, and like no deliverable is the same. Like they all have a lot of creativity behind it. And it's like responding to an RFP. It's like you built a strategy and you like hand it off, and then you got to be prepared to be like, no, like we don't like your idea. I feel like I'm back in like art school doing like critiques, and people are like, screw your painting, it's ugly. You're like, pull me apart. I'm like, it set me up for success in SEO. I think that's one of them. I'm curious about you guys. Curious what your response would be.
I want to just add to that, because a lot of times we spent a lot of time on these great presentations with all this research behind it. We present it. It seems like the client is really warm to the idea, and then they just can't move it along internally because there's no development resource to help publish stuff. Like that can be frustrating. So I think, do you see it as a rewarding career? You've got to disassociate yourself from your work and other people's responsibilities to stay happy with the work.
Yeah, you gotta do it for the love of it. It's like it's not the end point. It's like that journey along the way. And I find that's why I said I love being in the weeds. I love staying relevant to the research and the outputs and like what it could drive for somebody. And if they want to take it and run with it, awesome. If they don't, then that's cool too. We've learned something along the way. And it's just something I try to reminding my teams of. Don't be disappointed if a recommendation doesn't get implemented. Like you've brought great thinking, and that will pay off. And maybe not pay off today, it will pay off for some client in the future, and you'll see amazing results. Because we know that when you see the results, you're like, this is absolutely amazing. Like I made a massive impact on a big brand. Like it's better than that.
I think some of that goes back to the passion for the industry, which I think the three of us definitely have. We pitched a really big opportunity earlier this year, and we thought for sure we were going to get it, and we didn't. And it was that punch in the gut. Like it bothered me for 2 days, but not because of the passion. And we knew we could help them. But at the same time, it's like the cold calling, right? Like you just get hung up on so many times, but over time, right, they start to add up, and you build a business, and we're 7.5 years into it. So you just have to keep that perspective.
No, it will pay off. And I feel like sometimes I just want to be like, that's cool if you don't want to go with this work. We may not be for everybody. And maybe you got like a different mindset, or your plans changed, or you threw out a different budget than what you really had. But I'm always like, I just want to know, tell me why.
Yeah.
Really. Did you like my strategy? Because let's debate all day long.
I think the question that I would wish people would ask more is probably like in-house or agency.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And I think there's pros and cons to both, but I would not give up my experience at Razorfish for anything, or the every other agency activate that. I think you just, not to say there aren't smart people in-house, of course there are, but I think just when you're at a full service agency like that, you get exposure to so many different things. And if you want to work in the SEO industry, you need to be able to talk about all those different things. You definitely don't have to be an expert, but having general awareness about how all those things are interconnected definitely is, I don't know, I think it's incredibly important for this industry to be successful.
Yeah, you're interesting because you were agency, in-house, owning an agency.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I bounce back and forth, and again, pros and cons to both, but I think my experience at Razorfish, I met you guys. I'm trying to think. There's very few people outside of the two agencies that I worked at that I stay in touch with as much as we do. So I think that's testament to that too.
I feel like that's actually interesting. I had the opportunity to hire a few of my clients, and I hired them away from group because I'm like, if you can navigate like this conglomerate, like you can navigate in-house because you know the levers to pull, you know who you need to talk to, and they become very successful. But then I've also seen individuals that have come from an agency background of going in-house and just been like, no one's got a fire. No one's like trying to like move things along quick.
Yeah, that's right. All right. One last question. So we started a semi-tradition. We call it the Page 2 podcast prediction. So if you go to google.com in 12 months, what do you expect the search experience to be?
Oh my God, you could just say go to google.com in a month and see what it's going to be. I think it's just going to go back to being like definitely more AI driven, definitely more customizable and personalized results. Also heavily monetized. God, I just see that coming in everywhere. It's just, you have to monetize it. Like, how are you going to fund all that stuff? It's the whole name of it. Like Google's wants, in my mindset, like every step of the way, they're just doing more things to keep you in the SERP. And like, we all know that. So lean into the game. Like, how can you continue to own more of that additional real estate? Is it not just your site? Is it a network of sites that you're now running to try to own that space? And then also like, how are you properly monetizing it and trying to convert at every step of the way? Because the traffic that people are getting, it's more qualified traffic. And then also like, you need to just do a better job of converting that traffic that you have. Like, we can't afford to like be losing clicks, especially with this massive decline in click-through rate and spike in impression. If I get you to a page, like, how do we make that experience all the better? And so that's another one of the things. It's like SEOs now going to teams and CRO teams and being like, fix this. Like, we know what at no other point in my career have had more access to CRO tools, like Full Story and Crazy Egg, and being like SEOs are running this and being like, now we've got you the traffic. Like, take this gift. Now let's help you figure out how do you like convert that traffic to meet our goals? Because we're held to goals, but like I can get the traffic to the page, but like now I need help converting that traffic and having realistic expectations of what are those new goals that SEO is going to drive. Because I think that's going to change also, and it's going to have to continue to change to have successful long-term relationships.
Love it. This is great, Sean.
Yeah, this was incredible. Thanks again for joining us. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you can get the SEO team and the CRO team all marching in the same direction at the same speed, like there's nothing but good things that are going to happen.
Well, this has been awesome, Sean, and we really appreciate it. Getting a chance to reconnect after all these years has been really great. So if you enjoyed the show, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.